I think one of the biggest challenges that we need to address with the progression of digital ID and the idea of a digital first agenda is how we're going to deal with inclusiveness and questions of digital exclusion. To what extent are we building the right kind of ecosystem that caters to things such as cognitive, physical, emotional and financial vulnerabilities? If we don't take account of these issues of inclusion, then we will build systems that will exclude.
The biggest challenge in the digital ID landscape is around actually all of the different forms that this can take, the pace of technology versus the customer's appetite for that change, and how that actually is stretching the experience and attitude of different individuals across that spectrum. So how do you create an experience that both is simple for the customer but is suitably secure enough to protect our customers? It's a real dichotomy that needs to be resolved.
Biggest changes in the digital space, I would suggest, is how tech companies are using your data, which I think, as we discussed today, on one hand we really enjoy that. We love the consumer experience that gives us. But on the other hand, there's where is our data and what are people doing with it? And is this making us more susceptible to fraud, scamming, and so on?
From our perspective, the biggest challenge in the digital ID is how do we bring this all together and identify individuals or understand what individuals are doing across our organisation. We've all got lots of different systems and different channels of communicating with customers and clients. And how do we bring that all together to really understand what individuals are doing, not at a name level, but just at an individual level? How do we understand what they're doing and how can we improve their experience?
The biggest challenges, I think, in the digital ID space is really the world is becoming increasingly small from a user experience standpoint. We as customers want to engage globally, and we can do that now with the internet. Yet at the same time, every country and even regions within countries have their own national ID system or privacy or security regulations. So it's this tension that exists between our desire to have good user experience transacting globally with enterprises versus the regulatory and compliance environment that is very, very fragmented. I think that's the role that a digital ID can play.
If we want to build customer trust inside the digital environment, we need to be transparent about what we're doing, and we need to be holding ourselves to an independent account. We can't just be asserting, I'm great, trust me. You need other people to look at what you're doing and get them to vouch for your integrity.
I think there's a number of different angles to keep the trust of customers. I think one of them is around clear communication, whether it be through the types of methods of communication, making sure your branding is consistent, making sure that customers understand if you are verifying them, if you are placing in security measures, why you are doing it and what is involved for the customer themselves. And I think this is all about transparency.
We had a really good discussion on the prospect of a digital ID and actually who would own that. Is that a government-driven thing? How would that therefore work on an international basis? Would it be a tech company ownership, and how would that work, and how we need to think about how we distribute all the data that everyone owns about themselves, but how we can strive to get to that single ID that will allow you to use everything through there. My feeling is that would be an amazing thing to do, but the logistics and the governance and the risk of that, I think, needs a lot more discussion and debate.
The key takeaway from this is really thinking about a global single digital ID for people. As a company, the benefits from our perspective are super clear, but the conversation made me think about that more from a global perspective, and myself as a consumer. You know, what does that mean? What information does everybody have access to? And what sort of levels of trust do we have with that information? It completely depends on who's using the information, right? So if it's a government or a large financial institution, expectations are a lot higher around how that ID would be treated and what information is available. Maybe expectations are lower as we start getting into, I don't know, a shopping experience or something else.
I think my key takeaway from today was that, particularly given the people around the table, was that it's a multifaceted problem, right? It ranges from responsible marketing with some of the participants that were there who understand that they want to know as much as they can about the consumer. All of us were consumers around the table, and everyone had a point of view that privacy matters. And then we had some representation from compliance and regulatory there, where there is a responsibility to define what fair playing rules are, right? And so hopefully all of these parties can come together over the next decade and ensure that in this new world of technology and AI and deepfakes, that the consumer is king, and while we wanted to deliver a user experience, that everyone's coming together to make sure that the individual is protected.